والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. My dear respected shuyukh, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned where He said, خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we have created death and life so that we may test you to see which one of you does the best deeds. I want to remind myself and you that life is about making choices. All of life is about making choices. And a smart person is the one who makes the most good choices. We all make mistakes, which means that some choices we make are not the best. But in the long run, the best person is the one, the most successful person is the one who makes the maximum number of good choices. It's like in cricket. You got my South African friend here. Every batsman gets out. There's no batsman who bats forever. But the best batsman is the one who has the best batting average, which means how many runs did he make. And the same thing applies to us. What are the kinds of choices that we make? In my view, alhamdulillah, bismillahi ta'ala, you made a choice when you decided to come here to this course. And inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable it for us to benefit, not simply in terms of what we learn, but benefit by means of the fact that we ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to be pleased with us for having come here and for having dedicated this time for His dhikr and to learn about His Habib Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to learn about His seerah, and to learn about the seerah of the Khulafa Rashidah. So you made a choice when you decided to come here. But the bigger choice, and that is why I began with this ayat of Surah Al-Mulk, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. The choice which is being shown here is not the choice between good deeds and bad deeds, but the choice between good deeds and better deeds. Which is the ahsan of the amal? Which is the best of the deeds? So not only are we being asked to make a choice between good and evil, haram and halal, and inshallah we expect that this choice should not be difficult, because if you have any knowledge, it is not expected for the Muslim to have the knowledge to know what is wrong and then to deliberately do it. So this is a no-brainer. I mean, if you know what is wrong, then you leave it. There's no question of saying, I know what is wrong, but I still do it. But the bigger choice is that I know what is wrong, I know what is right, and I'm doing what is right, but in what is right, I have several choices. Now, which one do I pick? Which is the best of the choices? And as I told you, one choice you made when you came here with the intention of doing something good, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you not in keeping with your intention, not in keeping with your effort, but in keeping with His majesty and grace. But as I'm saying, the bigger choice is what you and I choose to do after we leave here. The bigger choice is what we choose to do after we leave here. Because that is where the rubber hits the road. Because we come here and we learn some things. Alhamdulillah. Knowledge is required because without knowledge you cannot have amal. Right knowledge is required because right knowledge is the precursor, it is the requirement, it is the ingredient for right amal. But after right knowledge, if that right amal doesn't follow, then what? With the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajmain, this was not an issue. I have yet to see any of the hikayat of the Sahaba where anyone differentiated between learning and doing. For the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajmain, to learn something was to do it. Otherwise, why learn it? This separation between learning and doing is our creation. It's not a legacy, it is our creation. And we have done this not only with Islamic knowledge, we have done this with all kinds of knowledge. We send our children to school for 12 years. If you remove the absolutely nursery years, 2 years and from grade 1 to grade 12, for 12 years. And at the end of 12 years of schooling, 12 years of full-time schooling, a child is completely and totally and utterly useless. He is what I call a net energy drain, a net resource drain. I'm sorry to make you guys look bad, it's not your fault. The system is bad. Because may Allah protect you, but one of those kids hits the street without support, the only thing that he can do is beg. Because 12 years of schooling teaches him nothing with regard to life skills, teaches him nothing with regard to how to take care of himself, gives him no tools for decision making, gives him a whole lot of information which in itself may be good, but which that kid has no clue how to use. I'm not saying that all they teach you is useless, it is not useless, but they don't teach you how to use it. So you know a lot of math, but you have no clue what to do with that math. You know some history, but you have no clue what to do with history, and so on and so on and so on. So the separation of knowledge and action is something that we have created and which we perpetuate, whether it is in secular knowledge or regular schooling and so on, so also in the deen, where we learn and teach a lot of information, facts, history and so on and so forth. We teach the Quran, we teach the meaning of the Quran, then we teach the tafsir of the Quran, and we teach how to recite it and so on. We teach all the fiqh and the masail of various ibadat. And not that the asatiza, not that the teachers told us not to use it. Nobody says don't use it. But most of us, when we leave, then we say, Alhamdulillah, one more course attended. And that's why, jokingly, I say, many people, this is the downside of the desire to learn. The downside of the desire to learn is that we have become professional course attenders. From one course to another course to another course to another course, and our houses are filled with manuals and manuals. I don't know if they are giving you a manual in this course, but manuals and manuals and manuals. All evidence for all the number of trees that got chopped to print those manuals. And even though, as I told you, none of the teachers will tell you don't apply, but really we have to ask ourselves this question and say, I attended this particular course, whatever it was. Now, how much of that knowledge have I applied in my life? How have I changed my life? This question, and that's why I began with this statement that life is choice. When we choose to do something, automatically we choose not to do something else. by default. When you pick something to eat, automatically you have chosen not to eat something else. When you chose to sit here at this time of the morning, you chose not to be sleeping in your bed or not to be doing something else. So automatically, when we choose to do something, we choose not to do something. And that's the reason why it is very important not only to think of what choice am I making, but also equally and sometimes even more importantly, to think of what is the choice that I am opting out of. Because sometimes we choose something which may look good, but we are opting out of something which is even better. For example, many of us are murideen of Sheikh Google, and we spend a lot of time with him late in the night, and we are Googling this and we are Googling that, and alhamdulillah, inshallah, all halal stuff. But if you are Googling away till 2 o'clock in the morning, then it is highly unlikely that you will wake up for tahajjud. And may Allah protect us, Allah alam, what happens to Salat al-Fajr. Maybe we make Jama'ah Bain al-Fajr wal-Dhuhr, Allah alam. So even though when you were browsing the net and you were Googling whatever it was you were Googling, as I said, we hope that it was all good stuff. But that good stuff is not the same as standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 2 rakat of tahajjud. So when you chose to do something, you opted out of something automatically. Because your body needs some rest. I mean, if you are awake till 2 o'clock in the night or something and then 1 hour and then you have to wake up again, it's not possible. Every once in a while I get these very sincere emails. And a person wrote to me and said, Sheikh, please tell me, how can I wake up for tahajjud? So I said only 2 words, wake up. Then I gave him a suggestion. I said, set up a contraption where you wire your alarm clock to the electric plug and then you put a wire onto your toe. So when the alarm rings, you have a shocking experience. So when you are choosing to do something, you are opting out of something else. And that is why I am saying, choices we need to make. And I remind myself and you that inshallah al-Mustan, we look forward to a wonderful time in terms of knowledge, in terms of understanding. And this time is ibadah. And this is the sunnah of the Sahaba radhiyallahu alayhim ajmain. The son of Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radhiyallahu anhu used to say that our father used to gather us together and he used to talk about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they used to call it the maghazi of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we gather together to listen to the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inshallah this is the sunnah of the Sahaba. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you for that, inshallah. But then we should follow through to the sunnah of the Sahaba. The Sahaba did not attend this gathering of listening to the story and then they said, alhamdulillah, very nice story, and they went home. No. They practiced what they learnt. And that is the bottom line. Now, I'm not saying also in this that inshallah, as happens in all these courses, one of the good things about these weekend courses and the short courses is that they are intensive. And we get a lot of information in a short time. But you see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this world with a balance. With everything good, there is potential for the opposite. So the good thing is that we have a short course in which we get a lot of information. But the potential, the opposite side of the story is that sometimes you feel inundated, you feel completely overwhelmed with all this stuff. Now what do I do? So I say to you that you don't have to, we are not saying here that there is no expectation, certainly not from me, and I am sure Allah alam, the Shaykh probably share my focus in this. There's no expectation that every one of us will go and be completely transformed into a new human being that nobody can recognize. Right? We're not saying that. But take away something. Seriously take away something that you intend to apply. And then apply it and then measure that application. So 3 things. Choose what you are going to apply. Number 2 is actually apply it. And number 3, measure that. How am I doing? And inshallah, if you make that kind of a choice, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inshallah put barakah in this, and we, over the time, we find that we actually make a difference in our lives and in the lives of others. And this was the sunnah of the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and we know the famous story of Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. He took 12 years to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah, and then he gave a big walima, he gave a party, he slaughtered a camel, and his friends gathered and they asked him, said, why did it take you so long? Because today, at least in our part of the world, in India, Pakistan, and all the schools that are set up around the world with the Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi asatiza who are teaching hifz of Quran. Any child worth his name will memorize the whole Quran in 2 years. And if he takes 3 years, then he is considered to be very slow. And if he takes longer than that, then they send him home. Because they can't be bothered with this guy, Salaam alaikum. So how does Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, one of the favorite Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the ulama among the Sahaba, a man who voluntarily came and became one of the Ashabu Sufa. He didn't come there because he had no money or he had nowhere to live. He had a house, he had everything. But he came and lived there because he wanted to learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly. And a man who was so particular and he followed the Sunnah so closely that Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha said that there is no one I know who follows the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than Abdullah ibn Umar. He was going one day and in one place he made his camel turn around 2 times and then he dismounted, the camel knelt, he dismounted and he prayed 2 rakat of salah in that place. People asked him, what is this thing, why did you do this? He said, because I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to this place, his camel took 2 turns and sat down and then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed 2 rakat of salah. Now why did this camel do that? Allah Allah. But that was Abdullah ibn Umar. So what does this man say? Why did you take 12 years? I'm talking about choices and I'm talking about application of knowledge and no separation between learning and doing. Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu said that we used to take 10 ayat from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We would memorize those ayat. We would learn how to recite them. We would learn their meaning. We would learn their explanation from the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if there were any ahkam, any things in those ayat, any orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be obeyed, we followed them completely, and only when we were satisfied, we would go to the next ayat of the Quran. So with the Sahaba, there is no separation. And that's why I remind myself and you that it is important for us to consciously choose that having come here, we are not going to just go away with a bunch of information. We are going to consciously choose to apply that information in our lives. Yes? Karenge bhai? Will you do it? When I say karenge bhai, jawab koi nahi de raha, kyun bhai? There are some guys here who look like they understand Urdu, no? So phir jawab do na. Jazakallah khair. My brothers and sisters, I want to close The Fajr reminder is supposed to be short. I want to close by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned three kinds of people: al-muqarrabin, al-ashab al-yamin, wa ashab al-shimal. Three kinds of choices. There is no fourth kind. And we won't go into the detail of all that now. Inshallah, that can be sometime else. But just to say that this is an issue of choices. So consciously, what do we choose to do? يَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Which is the best deed to be done at that particular point in time? What do I choose to do? And what do I choose to opt out of? And that's why I say to live is not merely to draw breath. Breathing is not the meaning of living. We need to live consciously and not live by default. That is the reason why the first hadith in Bukhari, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. What is the meaning of saying that the reward of the deed is based on the intention? Why intention? Conscious choice. Conscious choice. And intention is a conscious choice. And the reward of this deed, both in terms of the akhirah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us inshallah, as well as the result of that deed in this dunya. When we say reward of this deed, please don't think that it refers only to the akhirah. No, it doesn't refer to the akhirah alone. Akhirah is part of this. Of course it is, but the intention also shows its effect in this world. Consciously doing that deed. If you ask anyone who's done any kind of martial arts training, and Sheikh Tariq is one of them here. If you ask anybody who's done any martial arts training, what is the number one thing they teach you? In Aikido, which is what I used to train in, the number one thing is what is called centering. Centering is to be clear about your intention. My intention is that I am going to send you into the happy hunting ground in 5 seconds. Clear intention. Clarity of intention. You don't just, wave your sword around it. You are doing that very consciously with a purpose. And that becomes so much part of your stuff that you do it in a split second. That's a different matter. So conscious about the intention. And intention means choice. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah in the choice that we have made to spend this time here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with your coming here, to make this majlis, the majlis about which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when people gather to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the malaika surround that majlis and Sakina descends on them. And when the majlis is over, the malaika go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to report about this majlis. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you be the witness that I have forgiven these people. And we ask Allah for His forgiveness. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.